single dad only had $5 to feed his daughter, and the young CEO watching from the next table did tease a broken bar. David sat in the corner booth of a small diner just off the highway, his shoulders rounded as though the weight of the entire world had been pressed upon them. The smell of frying bacon and fresh coffee lingered in the air, mingling with the chatter of morning customers and the clinking of dishes. To most people, this was an ordinary Tuesday. To David, it was another uphill battle. In front of him sat his daughter, Lily. She was only 6 years old, with bright brown eyes that seemed too big for her face and pigtails that bounced with every excited tilt of her head. She leaned eagerly over the laminated menu, tracing the colorful pictures of waffles, pancakes, and milkshakes with her tiny fingers as if the glossy images themselves could satisfy her hunger. "Daddy, can I get pancakes, please?" she asked, her voice bubbling with innocence and joy. David smiled, though it didn't quite reach his tired eyes. His rough, calloused fingers tightened around a crumpled $5 bill in his hand. That was all he had, $5 to his name. Not $5 until payday. No $5 until tomorrow. A $5, period. He glanced at Lily, then down at the bill. The thought made his chest ache. Rent was already overdue. The electricity bill had a red notice stamped across it, and his job search had turned up nothing but rejection emails and "will keep your application on file" responses. Every morning, he woke up determined to keep going, and every night he went to bed with the same quiet fear: what if I fail her? But none of that could touch the joy on Lily's face. "Of course, sweetheart," he said softly, pushing the worry out of his voice. "Pancakes it is." When the waitress came by, notepad in hand and a kind smile on her face, Lily rattled off her order with delight. David added nothing for himself, just water. After she left, David sat back, sipping from his glass. He ignored the gnawing hunger that clawed at his stomach. He'd gotten used to it. Food for him was optional, food for Lily was not. Across the diner, a young man was watching. His tailored navy suit stood out sharply in the casual, small-town setting. His phone buzzed on the table, notification after notification lighting up the screen. But for once, he didn't reach for it. His eyes were locked on the man and the little girl in the booth by the window. The man's name was Ethan. At 28, he was the CEO of a rapidly growing tech company, one that had exploded from a small startup in a garage to a nationally recognized business in less than 5 years. He'd flown into town for a meeting, and the diner was just a convenient stop for breakfast. But as he stirred his coffee absent-mindedly, he couldn't tear his eyes away from the pair at the other table. The father's worn clothes, the way he pushed the empty plate away when asked if he'd like anything, the quiet hunger in his eyes. Ethan noticed it all. He also noticed the way that same man smiled at his daughter, as if she was his entire world. It stirred something in Ethan. Memories. His own childhood wasn't filled with wealth or comfort. His father had died when he was only 10. And his mother had worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. He knew what it was like to be the kid who noticed when a parent skipped meals. He knew what it was like to wonder whether love could fill the gaps that money left behind. When the pancakes arrived, Lily clapped her hands, her face lighting up like it was Christmas morning. She dug in eagerly, syrup smearing the corners of her mouth. David watched her with the soft, unshakable love of a parent who would endure anything to see his child happy. But Ethan saw the way David looked at the food, the way he pressed a hand to his stomach as if to silence its protest. "Just water for me," David had said quietly earlier, and Ethan hadn't missed it. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. He didn't know this man. He didn't know his story. But he knew the look of sacrifice when he saw it. After a few moments of thought, Ethan stood and walked to the counter. He leaned close to the waitress, spoke in a low voice, and slid his credit card across. "Cover their meal, and add whatever else they want." He hesitated, then pulled an envelope from his briefcase, the kind he used to carry checks for emergencies. With quick strokes of a pen, he scribbled a note, tucked a check inside, and handed it over. "Please give this to him after I leave." The waitress's eyes widened, but she nodded. A few minutes later, she returned to David's table. "Sir," she said softly, almost reverently, Your meal's been taken care of. Everything. And a broken bar. There's something else." She placed the envelope gently on the table. David frowned, confused. He picked it up, his fingers trembling slightly, and tore it open. Inside was a folded piece of paper. "A father who sacrifices everything for his child deserves more than $5. This world needs more men like you. Keep going, you're not alone." And tucked behind the note was a check for $5,000. For a long moment, David just stared. His breath caught in his throat, and his vision blurred with tears. His hands shook as he held the check, disbelief flooding his mind. $5,000. That wasn't just money, it was rent, food, stability. It was breathing room. It was hope. He looked around frantically, desperate to find the stranger behind this miracle. His eyes fell on Ethan, who was already heading for the door. "Wait!" David's voice cracked as he called out, raw with gratitude and disbelief. Ethan paused, turned back, and smiled softly. "You don't owe me anything," Ethan said. "Just promise me you'll keep giving her the love you're already giving. That's worth more than money." David's throat tightened. He stood, crossing the diner in a few hurried steps, and grasped Ethan's hand in both of his. His voice shook. "I don't know how to thank you." "You just did," Ethan replied gently. For a moment, the diner grew still. The other customers, who had overheard bits of the exchange, watched with quiet awe. Lily, her mouth sticky with syrup, looked between her father and the stranger with wide, innocent eyes, not yet able to understand the depth of what had just happened. Ethan gave one last nod and slipped out the door, disappearing into the busy world outside. David stood there for a moment, the envelope still clutched in his hand. Before returning to the booth, he looked at his daughter, her smile as bright as ever, and felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. Hope that tomorrow could be better than today. Hope that strangers could still care. Hope that love, kindness, and generosity could light even the darkest paths. As he sat down, he reached across the table, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's forehead. "Everything's going to be okay, sweetheart," he whispered, and for the first time in a long time, he believed it. Because sometimes, kindness doesn't just fill an empty stomach. Sometimes, it thrusts towards faith in the world.